My name is Audrey Green, and I am 29 years old. If you had asked me a year ago what my life looked like, I would have told you it was stable, predictable, peaceful even. I had a good job managing logistics for a supply chain firm, a clean two-bedroom apartment in the city, a decent savings cushion, and at least I thought a committed boyfriend named Kyle. Stability was always my currency. I built my life on it. I didn't realize until much later that some people don't see stability as love, they see it as a cage. Kyle was 24, 5 years younger than me, and he carried youth like a weapon. He had that shimmering, intoxicating energy that made everyone look at him when he walked into a room. Online, he was even brighter. His Instagram was a curated museum of thirst traps, gym selfies, and captions quoting songs about being untamable. He chased attention like oxygen, and I let myself become the steady background that made his spotlight glow brighter. When we were alone, he could be soft. Charming, even. There were nights on the couch where he'd rest his head on my shoulder and talk about his childhood, the fears he never told his friends, the dreams he had of becoming someone big. Those were the moments that hooked me. Those were the moments that made me believe I was building a life with him. But outside our apartment, Kyle changed. The shift wasn't loud. It was subtle. A side-eye when I didn't comment fast enough on a photo he posted. A sigh when I told him I'd rather cook dinner together than go out. A half-joking jab about me being a grandma because I preferred nights in after running 60-hour work weeks. And then there was Jared. Jared was Kyle's newly single best friend, the kind of guy who believed chaos was a personality trait. He had just been dumped by a woman he treated like decoration, and instead of growing from it, he decided to drag everyone down with him. Jared had a talent for stirring Kyle's insecurities like a spoon, swirling sugar into hot tea. "You can't let her control your youth," Jared would say. "You need to get out, man. Live." I never controlled Kyle. He never asked permission for anything. But Jared planted the idea that because I didn't want to go out every weekend, I was somehow suffocating him. And Kyle, desperate to feel untamed, ate it up. The tension simmered for months. First, Kyle started posting photos I'd never seen him take, shirtless mirror shots, poses that were clearly meant to attract attention. When I asked about them, he'd roll his eyes. "It's for engagement, Audrey. God, relax. You're so serious all the time." Serious, boring, stable. That was my role in his script. But the little things grew into big things, and soon enough, every disagreement ended with him accusing me of being insecure even when all I wanted was respect. It's funny how people who crave validation will accuse you of insecurity the moment you ask them to show loyalty. One Friday evening in October, a night I will remember with startling clarity, I was in the bathroom washing my face after the longest week of the quarter. Deadlines. Meetings. A system outage that had left me glued to my desk for 12 hours straight. All I wanted was takeout and a movie. Kyle appeared in the doorway wearing cologne I recognized as his night out scent. "Babe, we're going to Verdict tonight," he said, practically vibrating with excitement. I blinked. "Yeah, me, you and Jared." He leaned against the doorframe. "It's a new club. They're doing VIP entry tonight. Come on, it'll be fun." "Kyle, I'm exhausted. Can't you guys just go? I trust you." He pouted, actually pouted. "Jared thinks you never come out with us anymore. He said it's like you're keeping me at home." My stomach tightened. "I'm not keeping you anywhere," I said, turning off the faucet. "I'm just tired." Kyle's expression softened too quickly strategically. "Please, Audrey, I want to show you off tonight." That line was the hook, the illusion of affection, the bait that made me feel guilty for wanting a quiet night. I stared at myself in the mirror. Dark circles, hair, tied up shoulders, heavy with fatigue, and I told myself maybe I should try harder. Maybe I should bridge this gap between us. Maybe love meant bending until compromise felt like contortion. "Fine," I said, but I added, "I'm driving, and we're not staying until 4. He lit up like a child handed a new toy. 2 hours later, Kyle appeared in the living room, wearing a shirt unbuttoned nearly to his navel chain, glinting across his collarbone. His hair was perfectly styled. He looked stunning, and he knew it. As we walked to the car, I noticed he was texting Jared non-stop, smirking at whatever messages were flashing on his screen. Something inside me twisted quiet and uneasy. Verdict the club was exactly what I hated. Dark, subterranean, bass rumbling through the floor like a pulse. The air smelled of cologne sweat and desperation. Flashing lights illuminated bodies packed together like predators circling prey. The moment we stepped inside, Kyle transformed. He dropped my hand. His posture sharpened. His smile changed into something electric and hungry. We met Jared at the bar. Jared took one look at me and said with mock surprise, "Wow, Audrey actually came. Didn't think you'd let him out." Kyle laughed. He didn't defend me. That was when the first crack split inside my chest. Kyle grabbed a tequila shot from Jared's tray, tossed it back, and shouted, "Let's go," before pulling everyone toward the dance floor. He didn't wait for me. He didn't look back. I followed anyway, like someone trying to catch up to a person who had already emotionally left. At first, they were just dancing in a circle, taking selfies, screaming lyrics into the fog-filled air. I stood at the edge holding a drink I barely tasted. Then it shifted. A trio of women moved toward Kyle, one with bright red hair, one with glitter on her collarbones, one tall with long braids. They circled him like they already knew he'd respond. Kyle didn't step back. He didn't motion toward me. He didn't acknowledge I existed. He smiled. He leaned into them. He let the tallest one slide her hands across his waist as she pressed her body against his. I froze. My heart didn't race, it slowed. A strange cold clarity washed over me. He wasn't dancing. He was advertising himself. I walked into the circle and tapped Kyle's shoulder. He turned around, annoyed that I dared interrupt his performance. What he mouthed. "Can we talk?" He rolled his eyes dramatically, but followed me to the quieter edge of the floor. "You were just grinding on her," I said, keeping my voice level. "Her hands were on you." His expression twisted with condescension. "Oh my God, Audrey, it's a club. We're dancing. Stop being dramatic." "I'm asking you to respect our relationship," I said. "You're rubbing your body all over a stranger while I stand right there." He stepped close enough for me to smell the tequila on his breath. "You are being insecure," he snapped. "You ruin everything with your seriousness. Just go home if you can't handle it." And there it was. The truth inside him. The truth I had been refusing to see. I looked at him, really looked at him, and realized he didn't love me. He loved the comfort I gave him. He loved the safety net, not me. "Okay," I said quietly. He blinked, surprised. "You're right," I said. "I am being dramatic. Go dance with whoever you want." A smug smile spread across his face as he turned back toward the dance floor, heading straight for the red-haired woman. I didn't stay to watch the rest. I left. I walked out of the club, the cold night air hitting my skin like a second awakening. And I knew with absolute clarity that my relationship ended the moment he called me dramatic. The Uber ride home felt strangely serene, like my brain had finally switched off the noise I had been drowning in for months. City lights streaked across the windows, neon, smearing into soft electric colors. My pulse wasn't racing. My hands weren't shaking. I wasn't crying. It was the strangest part, how calm I felt. People talk about heartbreak like a storm, but mine felt like a room where someone had finally turned the music off. When I stepped into the apartment, the silence wrapped around me like a weighted blanket. Usually, this silence felt lonely, long stretches of time spent waiting for Kyle to come home from some outing he swore was quick. But tonight, the silence was a revelation, a clarity, a reclaiming of space that had slowly become a shrine to someone else's chaos. I didn't sit down. I didn't hesitate. I didn't collapse or reconsider. It was as if the anger, sadness, confusion, all of it had evaporated, leaving behind something sharp-focused and terrifyingly efficient. I walked straight to the kitchen, opened the cabinet under the sink, and pulled out a roll of heavy-duty black trash bags. The first one snapped open with a satisfying crackle. I started in the bathroom. His cologne bottles, his hair pomade, his beard trimmer, the endless collection of facial serums he insisted were essential. I swept everything into the bag with a clinical precision I recognized only from moments at work when I was under impossible deadlines. There was no emotion, no rage, just movement. When I unplugged his electric toothbrush, a memory flashed through my mind. Kyle laughing at me for buying a bulk pack of replacements on sale. "You're so practical, it's cute," he'd said. Cute, like being stable was some quirky accessory I wore for him. I tied the first bag shut and moved on to the bedroom. Opening his side of the closet felt like lifting a curtain on a life that had been slowly taking over mine. Clothes I paid for. Shoes he said he needed to match his image. The jacket he insisted was important for branding, whatever that meant. I pulled everything off the hangers, armful after armful, into the bag. The sound of fabric sliding together, hitting the plastic, echoing in the quiet apartment, it was rhythmic, almost meditative. I stacked 3 bags against the wall before I even stopped to breathe. The sheets on the bed still smelled like his cologne. I stripped them off, rolled them into a ball, and shoved them into a fresh trash bag. He once told me Egyptian cotton sheets were a waste of money. Tomorrow I planned to buy them anyway. By 12:30 a.m., the apartment looked like a transition zone between 2 lives, the one I had clung to and the one I was stepping into without fear. I pulled out my phone. Googled 24-hour locksmith near me. A man named Sean Bald, burly, with tinted glasses answered the call. He said he could be there in 20 minutes with an emergency fee. Is it a break-in? He asked. I looked at the mountain of black bags in the hallway. No, I said, it's a breakout. His laugh was a low rumble. Got it. Be there soon. While I waited, I unlocked Kyle's location-sharing app. His smiling face showed he was still at the club. I hovered my finger over the toggle. I didn't even hesitate. Stop sharing. A confirmation box popped up. This time, I didn't question myself. This time, I didn't swallow the discomfort. I clicked yes. Minutes later, Sean arrived. He glanced at the bag stacked by the door but didn't comment. He didn't need to. There's a universal moment between two adults where no words are required to understand what's happening. You want the deadbolt too? He asked, pulling out tools. All of it, I said. I want a key that's never existed before. He nodded with understanding only life experience can carve into a person's face. The drilling started a deep grinding vibration that echoed through the apartment. The sound was oddly soothing, like something unwanted was being carved out of my life, a rotten tooth removed from the nerves. While Sean worked, I taped a lined piece of printer paper to the counter and uncapped a thick black marker. My hand hovered above the blank page. For a moment, I considered writing a long explanation. Something emotional, something detailing every wound inflicted by his selfishness, every subtle humiliation, every time he made me feel invisible. But a long letter implied he deserved a conversation, a negotiation, a chance to explain. He didn't. So I wrote 2 simple sentences. Dance with whoever you want, just not in my apartment anymore. When Sean finished, he handed me 2 brand new keys, shiny, heavy, and cold, in my palm. They felt like something symbolic. Ownership, boundaries, freedom. Good luck, he said before leaving. Thank you, I answered. I think luck finally caught up. After the door closed behind him, I walked out into the hallway and arranged the trash bags neatly beside the elevator door. I didn't throw anything or break anything. This wasn't revenge, it was closure. Everything he owned was there, visible, honest, undeniable. I taped the note onto the largest bag at eye level. Then I stepped back inside and locked the newly installed deadbolt, sliding the chain into place. I poured myself a glass of whiskey, not the cheap brand Kyle liked, but the one I bought for special occasions. Turns out, ending a toxic relationship is the special occasion. I sat on the couch with the drink in hand and let the silence settle around me. No shouting, no accusations, no apologizing for things I didn't do. Just stillness. When 2 a.m. arrived, I went to bed and fell asleep immediately, a deep, peaceful sleep I hadn't felt in years. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the blinds like a soft invitation to a new life. I made coffee, I scrambled eggs. I listened to a podcast, something I hadn't been able to do without Kyle oversharing opinions in the background. And then at exactly 11:15 a.m., I heard the hallway elevator ding. Footsteps, a pause, a sharp inhale. Then, scrape, jiggle, shove. The new key didn't turn. What the, I heard Kyle mutter. Then a pounding. Audrey opened the door. The key isn't working. I took a slow sip of coffee. This was the part I had been ready for. I walked to the door, unlocked the deadbolt, and pulled it open just 4 inches, the chain still secured. Kyle stood there, mascara-smudged hair, disheveled, still wearing the same button-down from the night before. He looked like a man hit by reality at full speed. Behind him, all his things sat in black bags exactly where I put them. "What is this?" he demanded, eyes wide. "Why are my clothes in trash bags? Is this some kind of joke?" I looked at him with a clarity I'd never felt toward him before. "It's not a joke, Kyle," I said. "It's a move out." Kyle didn't take the door chain rejection gracefully. At first he went silent, stunned like his brain couldn't compute that the stability he had taken for granted simply ended. Then came the anger, the pounding, the frantic rattling of the handle. Audrey opened the door. "Are you seriously doing this? Overdancing?" His voice cracked pathetically on the last word, and I couldn't help but notice the irony. His fun, his validation, his performance from the night before it had vanished the moment consequences entered the room. But I didn't respond. Not then. Not when he shouted, not when he slid into pleading, and certainly not when he tried to charm his way back in with the same lines that used to work on me. The truth was simple. There was nothing left to discuss. Eventually, he stopped yelling. I heard him slump against the hallway wall, mutter something under his breath, then start hauling his bags toward the elevator. The dragging sound echoed down the hallway like the last unraveling thread of our relationship. After the elevator doors closed, I exhaled a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Peace. A strange, undeniable peace. The fallout, however, didn't wait long. By late afternoon, my phone buzzed with a message from Lena, a mutual friend. Hey, did you see Kyle's story? I hadn't. Kyle had blocked me, apparently eager to control the narrative, but I didn't need to see it. I already knew what type of story he'd post. Kyle never took responsibility if he could weaponize sympathy instead. Still, curiosity nudged me. I logged into a private burner account I used to quietly follow travel bloggers and recipe pages. Kyle's profile popped up instantly, his public persona always perfectly curated. And there it was. A video of him sitting on Jared's stained couch, eyes red and face drawn. He stared into the camera like some tragic romantic hero. The text overlay read, "Got kicked out by the person I trusted most. Thrown out like garbage. Narcissists always reveal themselves." Then a crying emoji, a broken heart emoji, and the final blow, #homeless, #survivor, #betrayed. I almost laughed. Kyle, who cheated respect the way others cheat diets, was now painting himself as prey. His inbox must have been flooded sympathy from strangers, validation from acquaintances, and the inevitable chorus of people who believed anything presented with a sad filter and a pity-pleading caption. But what stood out in the video wasn't the melodrama, it was the background. Jared's apartment looked like the inside of a disaster movie. Pizza boxes stacked on the counter, clothing everywhere, a cat perched on the back of the sofa licking itself aggressively. The place screamed chaos. Kyle didn't look like a victim. He looked like someone who had discovered that freedom came with a price he never planned to pay. I didn't comment on the video. I didn't post my side. I didn't defend myself at all. Experience taught me something valuable. When you respond to lies, you often look guilty. When you stay silent, liars eventually expose themselves. And expose himself he did faster than I expected. The next morning, I received a message from Sean, a coworker who had been at the same club that night. His text was brief, but powerful. Saw Kyle's story. Honestly, you handled it better than anyone would have. The way he was dancing with those girls, he should be embarrassed. And then another message from Lena. Someone recorded him flirting hard last night. It's going around. Within hours, I was seeing the clips from multiple accounts. The red-haired woman draping herself over him. Kyle lifting her by the waist during a dance move. Another woman tugging at his shirt while he leaned down to whisper something into her ear, grinning. The internet has no loyalty, especially not to men who humiliate their partners publicly. While Kyle tried to paint me as a villain, the receipts were already circulating, and people weren't buying his narrative. The comments under his pity post shifted quickly. "Dude, weren't you grinding on like 3 women last night? I saw the videos. You kinda did this to yourself. You're not homeless. Stop being dramatic. Bro, she didn't throw you away. She threw the trash behavior away." Kyle deleted the story by noon, but the damage to his reputation, not mine, was done. That week became a study in contrasts. Kyle's life fell apart. He discovered that Jared's apartment wasn't a temporary hideout, it was a sinkhole. Jared had zero structure, no meal prep, no cleaning, no budgeting, no plans beyond the next night out. Kyle, who depended on order convenience and emotional hand-holding, was suddenly living in pure chaos. And Jared wasn't tender with him either. By day 3, Kyle was complaining in voice notes to mutual friends. "Jared's place is disgusting. There's no food here except cereal. I can't sleep on this couch anymore. Why did Audrey lock me out?" It was one night. One night. Sympathy for him dwindled fast. When Kyle tried flirting with women online again, an attempt to fill the void, he didn't find what he was looking for. The flashy confidence he wore like armor had cracks in it now. The women who once entertained him weren't interested in a man bouncing between couches, complaining on social media, and clearly struggling. Validation, once easy for him, suddenly dried up. Meanwhile, my life bloomed. Without Kyle's chaotic orbit draining me, I found quiet joys returning. I started waking up early, not because I had to, but because the mornings felt gentler. I made real breakfast instead of grabbing whatever Kyle hadn't eaten. I cleaned the apartment once and it stayed clean. I worked without being interrupted every hour by dramatic texts. Even my coworkers noticed the difference. "You seem lighter," one said during a break. "Did something good happen?" Yes, something very good happened. I had reclaimed myself. I began going to the gym again, rediscovering the steady rhythm of my old routines. I reconnected with friends I hadn't been able to see because Kyle always complained they were boring. I bought the Egyptian cotton sheets I wanted. I rearranged the furniture the way I liked, not the way Kyle insisted was aesthetic. Life became simple, predictable, mine. And that was exactly why I wasn't surprised when Kyle reached out again. Desperation always circles back to where stability lived, but I wasn't prepared for how he'd return. It happened 6 weeks later. A cool Tuesday evening, sun setting in soft streaks across the gym parking lot, my muscles sore in the best way after a brutal session. I was unlocking my car when a familiar voice cut through the air. Audrey. I turned. Kyle was standing there. Not the polished, charismatic Kyle I once fell for, but a diminished version. Worn hoodie, messy hair, dark circles under his eyes. Nothing performative, nothing curated. Just a man who had lost everything he thought he was entitled to. Can we talk? He asked, voice trembling. And in that moment, I knew. He didn't come to apologize. He came because his world finally collapsed, and he hoped I would catch him before he hit the ground. Kyle didn't move closer right away. He stood there in the fading light of the parking lot, shifting from one foot to the other like a child waiting to be scolded. The sun caught the edges of his face, softer now, worn down. He looked nothing like the man who strutted across a nightclub dance floor, like a spotlight should follow him. Please, Audrey, he finally said, voice thin. Just 5 minutes. 5 minutes. It was almost funny. He had taken years of my patience, my energy, my emotional labor, and now he wanted 5 minutes like it was some precious gift. I unlocked my car and pulled the door open. You're blocking me, Kyle. That should have been enough, but he stepped forward anyway, a hand raised as if to grab my arm, then hesitating midair. I miss you, he whispered. I let the silence stretch between us long enough that he shifted nervously. He wasn't used to me being unreadable. He wasn't used to having no leverage. I miss us, he added more urgently. There is no us, Kyle, I said calmly. You ended that the moment 3 women were wrapped around you while you pretended I didn't exist. He flinched, not dramatically, not theatrically, but with an honest, involuntary twitch that told me the truth had landed somewhere deep. I was drunk, he said weakly. I wasn't thinking straight. Jared kept egging me on. I thought you were overreacting. I raised an eyebrow. So your defense is that you were drunk, irresponsible, and easily influenced by your worst friend? He shut his mouth. For the first time since I had known him, he didn't have a rehearsed answer. Kyle swallowed his throat, bobbing. Look, living with Jared is a nightmare. His place is insane, Audrey. There's no food, no privacy. Everything smells like old takeout. I can't sleep. I can't think. He exhaled shakily. I hate my life right now. That I said has nothing to do with me. His eyes widened, hurt, blooming where entitlement used to be. How can you say that? He cried. We were together for 3 years. You can't just erase that because I screwed up once. Once. The word hung in the air like smoke. It wasn't one night. It was every condescending eye roll when I asked for boundaries. Every flirty text he dismissed as meaningless. Every time he told me I was insecure instead of accountable. Every moment he acted like attention from strangers was oxygen, and I was just the boring air he breathed out. Kyle, I said softly, you didn't screw up once. You just finally did something big enough that I couldn't ignore the pattern anymore. He blinked rapidly, trying to process it. He was so used to minimizing his behavior that hearing it laid bare must have felt like a slap. I know I've been stupid, he said. I know. But the truth is, those girls didn't mean anything. They never meant anything. You're the one I love. I stepped back and his hand still hovering fell uselessly between us. No, I said, you don't love me. I do, he insisted, voice rising in desperation. I swear. You love comfort. I cut him off without raising my voice. He froze. You love stability. You love having someone who pays the bills, cooks the meals, and absorbs the fallout from your impulsive decisions. You love being cared for. But love, I shook my head. Love requires respect, and you never respected me. His eyes filled with tears. Not manipulative ones, not the dramatic performance I remembered from his social media meltdown. These were quiet, real, the raw kind that comes from realizing the safety net isn't coming back. Please, Audrey, his voice cracked. I can be better. I swear I can change. Change for what I asked. For me. Or because your life fell apart without me holding it up. He didn't answer. He couldn't. And that I said after a long moment is exactly why I can't take you back. He looked shattered, not angry, not defiant. Just hollow. Do you remember what you said to me that night? I asked. He wiped his face with the sleeve of his hoodie. I said a lot of stupid things. You told me I was embarrassing you, I said. You told me to go home. You said you didn't care if I left. I looked him dead in the eyes. Well, I listened. He winced like the words physically hit him. A woman in gym leggings walked past us, glancing awkwardly at the tension. Kyle stepped back, shoulders hunched, suddenly small, in a way I'd never seen before. Audrey, I don't have anyone else, he whispered. But you have yourself, I said calmly, and that's the person you always wanted to focus on anyway. He stared at me, a long, broken stare, and I saw something in his eyes unravel. Pride, entitlement, the belief that I would always be there to catch him. I stepped into my car. He moved toward the door instinctively, but stopped when he realized I wasn't hesitating. Audrey, please just tell me what to do, he begged. Tell me how to fix this. I paused with my hand on the steering wheel. You can start, I said, by learning to stand alone. He let out a sharp, helpless breath, a sound like surrender and heartbreak woven together. Then I closed the door. He stood there in the parking lot under the heavy colors of the sunset watching me. No shouting, no pounding, no last-minute theatrics. Just silence. A silence full of everything he now understood too late. I turned the key. The engine rumbled alive. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. Some endings don't require a goodbye, only a choice. And I had made mine. I drove home in complete silence. Not because I didn't know what to feel, but because for the first time in years, I didn't need to feel anything for someone else. No emotional cleanup, no crisis management, no bracing myself for another apology that would crumble the moment attention tempted him again. Just me, just clarity, just a life that finally felt like it belonged to me again. When I pulled into my parking space, the last trace of sunlight had slipped behind the buildings. The air was crisp, cool enough to sting a little as I inhaled deeply. I remembered how months earlier every drive home had felt like preparing for impact, wondering if Kyle would be upset, distant, overly affectionate, or in one of his moods that made me feel like I was standing on a trapdoor. But now home wasn't a minefield, it was just home. When I stepped inside, the apartment greeted me with warm light and stillness, the kind that wrapped around me like a soft blanket. The Egyptian cotton sheets I'd bought were neatly folded on the couch, waiting to be washed. My gym bag was by the door. A candle burned on the table, smelling like vanilla and cedar. Everything was simple, uncomplicated, mine. I kicked off my shoes and let myself sink onto the sofa, exhaling slowly, fully, without tension, coiled behind my ribs. It struck me how much space Kyle had taken up, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally. How my days revolved around his needs, his moods, his impulsive choices, his constant craving to be validated by anyone but me. And how small I had allowed myself to become just to keep the peace. People talk about toxic relationships like dramatic shouting matches or explosive betrayals, but most of it is quieter. It's erosion, slow, subtle. You don't realize how much of yourself has washed away until you see the shoreline disappearing. Tonight, watching Kyle break in the parking lot, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vengeful. I didn't even feel sad. I felt released. Because the truth is, not every heartbreak comes from losing someone. Sometimes the heartbreak is realizing how long you loved someone who never learned how to love you back. I got up and started a load of laundry, just mine, just my things. A small, mundane act that somehow felt like reclaiming territory. While the machine hummed softly, I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of chamomile tea. I looked around at the clean counters, the uncluttered space, the quiet. And a single thought settled in. I'm finally alone, but I'm not lonely. For the first time in a long time, solitude wasn't emptiness. It was possibility. My phone buzzed, then Lena again. Hey, are you okay? I typed back. I'm good, really good. And I meant it. There would be no dramatic rebound for me, no rushing to fill a void that didn't exist anymore. I wasn't interested in replicating chaos. I wasn't desperate to prove anything to anyone. I was learning not how to be without Kyle, but how to be with myself. And God, it felt liberating. Over the next few weeks, Kyle tried reaching out twice more. Once through an email titled, "Please read," which I didn't. And once through a mutual friend who asked if I might be open to closure. I declined that too. I didn't need closure from him. I already had it from myself. I started taking morning walks before work, just to hear the city wake up. I joined a yoga class on Saturdays. I hosted dinner for 2 friends Kyle never liked. I rearranged the bedroom, bought art for the walls, learned how to cook a dish I'd always wanted to try, but never had time for. Little by little, my life stretched into a shape that felt genuine, balanced, easy to breathe in. But the biggest transformation wasn't external. It was the moment I realized I would never again apologize for wanting respect, and I would never twist myself into someone's emotional cushion just because they were afraid to stand on their own feet. Loving someone shouldn't feel like constantly holding your breath. I learned that the hard way, and I learned it well. One night, weeks after seeing Kyle in the parking lot, I stood by the window, looking out at the city lights. A breeze drifted in cool against my skin. I thought about the past 3 years, what I gave, what I lost, what I gained. I whispered to myself quietly but firmly, never again. Not out of bitterness, out of promise. A promise to myself that I would listen the first time my boundaries trembled, that the next time someone wanted love from me, they would need to offer respect first, that I would never again settle for someone who made me feel like the background character in my own story. The world outside shimmered alive, busy full of possibility. And for the first time in a long time, I felt ready for it. Not as someone's emotional anchor, not as someone's fallback plan, not as someone holding the weight of another person's immaturity.